let me say a special good morning to one and all. Our sister Isles of Carriacou, Petit Martinique, good morning. Let me say good morning to our online listeners and viewers this morning. When I say online viewers, I mean those of you who are viewing via our YouTube channel or Facebook page. Let me say good morning to you and thanks for being part of To The Point for this week. Monday, the 24th day of October within the year 2022. Good morning to one and all and welcome to another edition of To The Point. It's GT with you, and you know what happens on a Monday here on To The Point, and I do have my co-host with me this morning. Once again, that's Mr. Sylvan McIntyre. We'll be introducing him shortly, and you know what happens? We take a time out to throw out loads of information to you. We started off this particular program a couple of weeks ago, and we've been, of course, sharing loads of information in terms of risk management, emergency preparedness, and how you will respond to emergency and so forth. And always been an interesting in terms of the information that we disperse to you every Monday. And today will be no exception to what the information that will be thrown out. So once again, and before I get into trouble, let me say good morning to those of you listening via K105. Good morning to you, whatever part of the island you're driving or you're in your home and you're listening. Welcome. Let me introduce Sylvan this morning and go over and say good morning to him. Sylvan, good morning, welcome.
Hey, good morning, GT, and good morning to your listening, your viewing audience, and those who are following us on YouTube or in the World Wide Web. We say good morning to everyone. It's, again, always a pleasure to be on this program. Always a pleasure to be on with GBN, reaching the people, giving public information that is relevant to our own development and so forth and our own safety. So, again, good morning, everyone. It's a wonderful day, October 24th. And we understand what happened or understood what happened in October many moons ago, where I think tomorrow is going to be observed as another
Thanksgiving Day tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes, Thanksgiving.
So how was your weekend? How was your weekend, sir? How was your weekend, man?
Oh, my weekend was great. I had a few interesting activities over the weekend that I'm elated about.
All right.
Some of it social and otherwise. So I am in good spirit. Despite sometimes we have a little inclement weather here and there, but I'm in good spirit, ready, empowered with the information to share with our people. And again, I'm encouraged by the feedback that we are getting, how much traction our program on Monday is really taking and so forth. So again, kudos to GBN and kudos to those who are giving us their response. It has helped me. And it has helped me have a wonderful weekend because I look forward to Monday. All
right. Yeah. Well, for me, it was a kind of bit of a hectic weekend for me, in terms of work. I've been in the mountain area for the entire since after getting off from work on Friday of last week until Sunday. It was a bit tiring and then the rain up there went. So did get lots done in terms of what I was up there doing. But so it's have taken a bit of toll on me this morning though. It was like didn't want to get out of bed this morning in one of those Monday mornings. But certainly I'm here to take you through this morning and all listening and the viewing audience this morning. Sylvan, last week, as you said, there was loads of feedback to our program last week, and before we get into the program this morning and what we're going to be talking about, I know you like to give that little insight and a little bit of going back and in terms of what we dealt with before and come back. And even though we touched some regional issues that are happening in terms of if there was a particular issue that happened on the island, I'm not sure if there's any of that you want to share with us this morning before we proceed into in depth in what we intend to speak about this morning.
Oh yeah, sure. Again, we feeding off the energy of the people or audience that are following us, listening to us, viewing us. And as you indicated, sometimes we touch on regional issues and we are empathizing with our colleagues, our friends, our neighbors over there in Mexico. They've just had the impact of a strong hurricane and they're counting loss of lives.
Yeah.
One loss of life is one too many to lose. Yeah. But the count is already 2, and that could rise. But again, every time one of these tropical systems make impact on one of the islands, our countries, it does have an indirect impact on our own economy. And we still want to not forget the United States, the southern coast of Florida that was impacted by hurricane just a couple weeks ago, just over 3 weeks ago. And they are still recovering from that. We're seeing still quite well, it's not really rescue mission, but we're seeing recovery efforts taking place and still they're finding bodies. That's the reality of nature. And we keep saying every time that when your neighbor's house or territory is on fire, you actually wet yours. So I think Grenadians, we should learn to appreciate the expertise of our own, the contributions that we are making, listen to our local authority who are entrusted with the information to guide us in terms of emergency preparedness, emergency response, and most importantly, how we integrate that in our development processes, meaning that how we build houses, how we build structure, how we move around, and how we respond and react to emergencies, and how we empower ourselves, and how we also support those who are entrusted to lead us in emergency response, the support mechanism that we can provide and how we can do that. So in a nutshell, yes, while Grenada, we are happy to be receiving the little rain and the little winds sometime, and the sun that we're getting that complements, again, our little agricultural practices, etc. But we have to remember those who are there and not enjoying that kind of a privilege that we really have. So that's the context of it. In terms of where we left off last week, for CPR, we identified cardiopulmonary resuscitation as one of the most important emergency activity that one could undertake, because, as I have termed it, it is like a human life-saving machine, where if somebody collapses for some medical or some reason where any of their organs or system start failing, they need to be resuscitated. And by that, we mean bringing back through a process where you can give rescue breaths and you can give chest compressions. We did rightly articulate that modern, you don't necessarily need to give the rescue breaths, but you can give chest compressions. We did say that anyone could do that, everyone could do that, and there are 3 levels of persons. It's an infant, a child, and an adult. And last week, we spoke mainly of the adult resuscitation process, where you use 2 hands, you give the breaths, etc. Today we will focus on the child, and we will focus on the infant, and hopefully people will chime in. I allowed this topic to stay within that frame, so that if people have questions that they would like clarified, we would spend the time on it. If we're not getting the feedback, there are other emergencies and the response to them that we can speak about, other illnesses that people can have, and how you react to those kinds of sickness or emergency immediately in home, the community, or otherwise. We can also touch on that. But this morning focus, we'd like to speak on the child and the adult, where there is not a lot of variation, but it is very important that we understand how we can do it, because we can make a seeming mild situation exacerbated or become worse because we did not apply the appropriate technique.
All right. You mentioned a while ago that the focus is a lot going to be on the child and infant. Yeah. I mean, in your capacity as the professional in this, how do we distinguish between both?
Yes, and there sometimes is a very thin line, but for medical and emergency purposes, we have categorized the age level for an infant. And an infant is a person from age 0 to 1 year. Beyond that, from 1 to 8 years, and as I indicated on the program before, the modern revision for that is like 1 to 9 or 12 years is the new level where you determine someone in a child category. I want to just draw another distinction here. There are times that you may have infants who are so developed, they might be just about a year or between 0 and 1 year, but their structure might be so developed that it looks beyond that. In such a case, the responder or the rescuer may be required to apply a child technique on an infant. And in some cases, you may have an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old who is so developed that you may have to use adult technique on them, meaning that if you're going to do the compression on a child that is so developed and the body might be much firmer than that of an adult, you would want to use 2 hands rather than 1 hand. And in the case of an infant that appears to be so developed on assessment, you would use the 1 hand rather than the 2 finger to do the chest compression. And that's something that people will need to pay particular attention to. What I always say to people is that while we can teach you the correct and the professional approach on things, we cannot teach people common sense, and we cannot tell you what decision to make on in some cases. You may just have to do your own assessment if something happened and figure out, well, this is what I learned, this is my parameter, I would have to take my best chance, I would have to take my guess to do this, and hopefully it works out right. So in some cases, I can teach you and say, well, this is what you do across the board, this is what you do it because it is fixed like that. No, there are times that you as a community member or a responder, you may just have to make a decision on your own as to whether you use an infant application, a child application, or you use an adult. Yeah.
Now, let me ask this also. When it comes to a child and infant, so we still working within those two individuals there.
Yes.
What are some of the common problems that you may know of that will incur that an individual may have to do CPR between a child and an infant? What are some of the things that happens to you that drives you as an individual? Maybe I have to do CPR to this child or that infant.
Yes.
What are some of the common problems that would incur that lead you to to perform CPR?
Yeah. So in my experience in the field and moving around, the more common problems that we have encountered is that of choking, that would lead sometimes to doing CPR. Infants and children, as you know, they are very they try to discover things. They are very inquisitive. They try to explore beyond our own imagination. And so part of their instinct is to pull things and explore, inquire and see what it is all about. And as infants in particular, one of the first place things would go is in an infant's mouth. And so some of the common things you'd see is like seeds, like beads, and like skin up or guinea seeds, and all of these are plum. These are things that kids may ingest. They may take that in, or in some cases where they become older, we would see them coming down with asthma attack and so forth, where sometimes they collapse and would need some level of resuscitation. In other instances, you have persons having seizures and convulsive seizures, I may say, that may come from epilepsy. And in some cases, they would collapse and would require that kind of intervention. The other one is that of near-drowning situation, where children and sometimes toddlers, they might be at a swimming pool, left unattended, drop in, or they might be on the beach unattended, roll into the water, slip into the sea or something of that sort, have a near-drowning situation, and CPR may have to be applied to them. These are some of the more common things. In cases where they may have taken in something through their mouths and they cannot breathe, or they may have pulled something into their nostrils, the nose, and they can't breathe properly, you have to apply the choking techniques first and foremost on them. And the choking technique would simply be some tap on the upper shoulder, just towards the middle of the back. You would do some slap on that. Or you can do a chest thrust with the finger right at the sternum area, or just on the diaphragm area. Would do the same two fingers pushing upward. That thrust will create some pressure that can bring that blocked thing out of the nose or from the mouth. And then in that process, you may be required on assessment to give CPR, or to give the process of resuscitation. And that is critical. And when that happens, where you find there is a choking child or otherwise, or an infant, where they might be lacking oxygen or circulation, some of the more common signs that the skin color will definitely change. It may become cold and clammy or pale in some instance, or you may have a process called cyanosis, where the lip or the earlobes become much darker than the normal color of the skin. Once one observes that, you realize that there is a lack of oxygen. A lack of oxygen also indicates that there could be a lack of circulation. Once that is happening, you realize that you would need to do an assessment, a head, tail, chin lift, and then apply the chest compression and or the rescue breaths to recover or resuscitate that child or infant.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me also ask this, because my mind is bubbling with lots of questions for you this morning as we speak. What are some of the do's and don'ts in performing CPR on a child or infant? What are some of the do's and don'ts that individual who may be listening to us this morning and may run into that particular situation? What are some of the do's and don'ts you will recommend?
Okay, so before I delve deeper into the do's and don'ts, I want to just give an overarching action and a caution. With an infant who might require resuscitation, the individual would be required as quickly as possible. If someone is there to ask them to call emergency department. That's straight up.
Yeah.
But because toddlers and infants are more vulnerable, they're very susceptible. They can expire quicker than adults. You'd want to get a quick intervention. So in this case, you may rush to that infant, apply some breath or the quick technique, and take a space in between, rush back, call 911. But if there's someone in the room or otherwise, once you recognize something happened, just immediately activate, call the 911 emergency system, inform some authority that this is happening and that person needs attention. In the event that is a child, you may want to, the resilience level is a bit more than an infant. So in both cases, you may make your own call, whether or not I should just rush to the child before calling, or should I call before going to the child. But it is absolutely necessary. Once an infant is in that kind of emergency, once you know the technique, you know what to do. You should really get to that toddler or that infant quickly, but in the process, still keeping the emergency department informed. There are some do's and don'ts that one must adhere to. CPR or any of these rescue processes is better done on a hard surface. So if there is an infant or a child or even an adult that might collapse on a bed or otherwise, you're better off getting them onto the floor on a harder surface where you can do the compression properly. And that's one of the overarching things that everyone should be mindful of. We heard of the case of Michael Jackson and Dr. Murray, where it was alleged that the doctor was doing compression on the bed, where in this case, the compression was not being properly applied. So if you are going to be doing compression on anyone, the best position to do, circumstances prevailing or otherwise, they should be taken to or brought on a hard surface where that could be applied. There are other circumstances you would want to ensure that the environment, like every other emergency, it is conducive to what you want to do. So if the environment is contaminated, for instance, somebody collapsed with an asthma attack or otherwise, you want to get them away from that area before applying the techniques or the first aid intervention on them. So you want to ensure that safety is one of the factors. If you are a more trained, organized first aider or responder, in this case, you would be carrying your PPEs. You will have masks, you will have gloves, you will have sanitizers, etc. You want to protect yourself. There is something called BSI, body substance isolation. So in most cases, it may not be someone within your own environment. So the safety factor must kick in. We do have body substance that could lead to other illnesses. And in most cases, people think that the responder is always the healthier person. It doesn't have to be the case. A person in an emergency doesn't mean that person is contagious. You, as a responder, somebody who is attending, you too may have something that could be transmitted. So you need to protect yourself from the individual and the individual from you, meaning that you must do body substance isolation on both hands. You use washing, sanitizing, wearing a mask, wearing a gloves, etc., to ensure that those safety measures are undertaken. And in all of the cases, as I said before, ensure that the expert medical people are informed of your activity. I understand right now we're trying to set up an emergency dispatcher system in Grenada, where we do have people properly trained 911 dispatchers who can direct people and assist them, give them guidance on the phone. We're looking forward to the day when we are up at that level, where things could be dispatched, where people can make a call, and where they could be guided in the appropriate emergency procedure to be applied.
All right. Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, that will be very, very welcomed here in Grenada, where you can make that call and you can give the necessary instructions, will certainly guide you to do whatever you have to do, just in case a situation of that nature occurs. So when we drew for a break, we're going to take it. We do have some video that we would like to show our viewing and listening audience this morning. And in the process of that, if the listening viewing audience out there do have a question or two that they may like to ask, we certainly will entertain it. Don't forget the number 435-2041. We're going to take a short break. We're coming back, and when we come back from the break, we're going to entertain that video. So I'm saying, Master Control, you could have that all prepared. So when we get back inside the next segment, we're ready to entertain that video where would give us some illustration of how compression is done on a youngster. We coming right back after the break. Stay with us here on To The Point.
Do more with your new GUT Credit Union Visa debit card, which gives you access to your cash at
You've asked for it, and now it's here. The NLA announces its new mid-morning draw, commencing September 30th at 9:45 a.m. Yes, you heard right. Draws for Pick 3, Cash 4, and Playway will now be conducted 3 times daily at 9:45 a.m., 12:45 p.m., and 7:45 p.m., Monday to Friday. The Saturday draws remains twice daily. And that's not all. Simply place your non-winning Cash 4, Pick 3, and Playway tickets valued at least $10 from a single purchase in the NLA branded box at your favorite sales location for chances to win 10 prizes of $1,000 each. Whoa! $10,000 is up for winnings. Compliments the NLA. Be sure to write your name, address, and contact info on your entries before submitting. Promotion runs from September 30th to October 28th and would be drawn on Friday, November 4th, 2022. NLA, making your dreams a reality while supporting sports, culture, and nation building. Must be 18 or older to participate. Terms and conditions apply. See stores for details.
Wednesday, 26 October, Hot 98 FM will be blazing the airwaves from downtown St. George's. Come join the fun, meet the Hot 98 team and some of our partners in front of the Esplanade Mall from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Great music, exciting deals, huge discounts, and enough giveaways from our partners and us. Stay tuned to Hot 98.5 FM. Like and follow our social media pages to find out more about Hot in the City. We will be coming to a city near you. Mark the date, Wednesday, October 26. Hot in the City. Hot in the City.
This is why I'm hot, hot. This is why I'm hot, 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 hot.
Welcome back, our listeners and viewers. It's To The Point for today, Monday, the 24th day of October. And welcome once again. I do have my co-host with me this morning, Mr. Sylvan Intyre. And before the break, we did actually mention that we do have some footage. Matter of fact, speaking to the control room, I don't think it's actually a video, Sylvan. I think it was actually some still pictures that were sent. So I hope if we don't have some, maybe you may have to comment on it. I'm not sure if you have a visual from your vantage point, but he's saying there are more stills. So I'm going to ask Master Control.
Okay.
Well, I'll ask Master Control to put them up, and maybe you could. I'm not sure if you could able to view it, but Master Control, you could probably pop them up right now, and I'll see if we could come across. And I'm looking at this one as saying a child between 1 to 8 years is given CPR to a child. Use one hand. So I'm guess that picture there is though giving a description of the compression that should be used to the child or that infant or that child per se, and push down hard, fast, 1.5 inches in depth. 100 to 120 compressions per minute. Allow the chest to return to a normal position after each compression. So that's the information that's been shared there on that first picture there. I'm not sure if you want to explain on that, a bit more, but that picture actually is saying to us that the amount of compression or the position where you position your hands and so forth when you intend to perform CPR on a child or an infant. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and you can keep that image up and the information up while we chat on it a little bit. So
right.
It is important that we do not confuse the depth of compression. Meaning, for the adult, you would go 1.5 to 2 inches. For the child, one would do 1 to 1.5 inches deep. So it means, therefore, that the pressure that you apply for an adult, that it is less that you would apply for a child. And you're using 2 hands to do this for an adult, but you're using 1 hand for a child.
What's the reason for, not cutting on you there, Sylvan, but what's the main reason for using 1 hand for a child instead of 2?
Yes, because with the both hands, you tend to exert more pressure. The weight of your body would be obviously more balanced, so you can get more of the upper body going down over the child, so it becomes easier for you to just transfer more weight and more pressure onto that child. With the one hand, you are actually exerting half to a third of the pressure of the weight of the body onto that child's chest. In addition to that, you would use the other hand to ensure that there is some level of support that could be provided for that child. Some people are best positioned to put one hand on the ground so that not so much pressure is applied on the child's chest. Some people are okay in keeping the one hand on the forehead in the open airway position. I tend to prefer putting one hand on the ground while you do the compression. You tend to press on the head and on the chest simultaneously if one hand is on the forehead and one is on the chest. That seems to be a natural process of the weight application and the pressure application. So I tend to go for the position of putting one hand on the ground and one hand on the chest. It also, as I indicated, would aid you in not going as deep as you would have gone, and understanding that the child's rib and structure is not as developed as the adult, and so the pressure can lead to popping of the rib or the rib cage, etc., and that could lead to further injuries, damage to the organs, or you can have other wounds taking place on the inside and could lead to internal bleeding and other complications that could occur. So that's one of the reasons why the one hand is used as opposed to using both hands.
All right. Now let's talk about the compression that you will apply to a child when CPR is being offered. You know, compression level. How do the individual go ahead doing that?
So as the image indicates, you apply the one hand to the center of the chest, just a little between or a little lower that of the nipple lines, and you press with a straight locked out elbow. The hand should not be curling or bending at any time. It should be held straight, locked out as indicated. You pressing straight down from the shoulder for the body, and then you begin with a particular count. Remember, we established that the heart needs to have an upper and a lower level, and in and out. The diastolic and the systolic pressure as indicated when you're doing a blood pressure reading, and that's the upper and the lower level. So when you are pressing the heart, again, if you press hard, press fast, you're going to get circulation to take place in a quicker time. So there is a rhythm that has to be adapted. It's like a 1 and 2 and 3, and you can do it a bit faster. What you're trying to achieve there is 100 to 120 compressions in a minute. Now, if you're doing that compression with the rhythm that I just mentioned, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, you can actually get, and you can set your clock for yourself, and you realize that it's actually possible with that kind of a rhythm. And it comes over a period of practice. Yeah. Someone just applying compression as an amateur or just for the first or second time may not necessarily be bang on. I also did establish that while it is ideal for 100 to 120 compression in a minute, it is not hard and fast. Once compression is applied, you're likely to have a reaction. The heart is likely to respond to compression. It is ideal to do the correct thing, 100 to 120, but just in case you missed it, you missed your count, one should not give up and say, well, I forgot where I got to, so I just need to start all over again. What is important is that the placement of the hand, the pressure is applied to the chest so that you can get the heart pumping again. All right.
Let me ask you this, Sylvan. I mean, this should go across the board for both a child and an adult in offering CPR. Mm-hmm. What is the time factor in terms of offering CPR? How long should an individual perform CPR on an individual?
Well, one has a 3 to 5 second assessment to determine someone really needs CPR. Mm-hmm. There is no fixed time as to when you should finish CPR, but there's a best time to start. Once you recognize immediately someone has collapsed, you do your assessment, CPR should commence immediately. If the person recovers after a couple compression, you realize that the person coughed up or they vomited and so on. That is a reaction. You would assess the airway is open and you could discontinue. If the person collapses again after you check for the pulse, you check for an open airway, you recognize that the person is breathing and they're breathing lightly, you do not want to continue CPR. Once you're getting a reaction from that person, it means that the system is rolling back into its normal or its near normal function. And it is dangerous to continue compression on somebody who has a regular heartbeat and they might be breathing. Right. So there's only 3 times that someone is permitted to cease CPR. 1, if the person shows signs of recovery or they recover normally, then you should obviously stop. If a second aider or the medical experts, ambulance, hospital people arrive on the scene, you hand them over. And the other time that you should cease or stop is once you get too tired to continue. So you're walking, no help is coming forth. You called the hospital or somewhere for ambulance assistance, nobody is coming to it, and you're there and you're walking, and you just become too tired and you're going to collapse. You probably will become a casualty yourself. That's the point where you also want to stop. But as I also indicated before, I don't know of anyone who has a loved one who is in need of CPR who would just give up. I think our average tendency, even as Grenadians, we love to help and assist. We will be working there relentlessly until we find some result, or the doctor or somebody arrive and they say, well, that person has expired, they're no longer available with us. Then we will probably have some resolve on that. But I think people just want to keep walking and walking. But I just want to guide that we would not like to have any victim or casualty. 1 is one too many, and 2 is overwhelming. All right.
Okay, sometimes I ask that because sometimes you may look at a particular movie or that something, and you see people are constantly doing it, and you wonder, should there be a time when they should stop? Is there a stop period? But you're saying there's no particular stop period, except you realize that the individual may have started to breathe on their own again, but you realize, no, that's where I cease to or stop doing whatever I'm doing there now in terms of performing the CPR.
Yes, and obviously you want to be guided by the experts.
Yeah.
If the ambulance arrives, some doctor arrive, the nurses or the paramedics, they arrive on the scene, you would want to then hand over and just give them support.
All right.
But anyone in a home or otherwise, you're just there and you're working with result. There is always an opportunity for life. That's what we have to assume. And this is why we would go out and assist. If someone is bleeding, we want to always assume that we can control that bleeding to the point where this person will recover.
All right.
If that person is not breathing, their heart seems not to be beating, we always have to assume there is something I can do about it. And this is why good mechanics work on vehicles, because they always feel like they can bring this thing back. And they will be at it. And this is what good citizens and good people are about. We always would think that there's an opportunity for life. Let us just keep walking, doing what we know we were taught to do, or we know that we understand we should do to save somebody's life or to preserve it.
Sylvan, we do have a call on the line. I'm assuming they may have a question or two that they would like to ask. Let's go over to the caller. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Yes, good morning, and good morning to Mr. McIntyre. I'm listening intently and I'm learning quite a lot. The only thing I find you speaking of ideal situation, let us look at examples right here in Grenada. No, a woman fell in Foodland during COVID time. No, a young lady who spoke in the news said that she went to her rescue, and the woman happened to tell her in whatever way she communicated that she had another sick illness. So the young lady started to look in her bag, but the police came and stopped her. That's what she said in the news. I wasn't there. And stopped her from going in the bag. Now, in the bag could have been the woman's pump, but nobody saw it fit to take it and give the lady a sniff while she was lying on the ground. A similar situation happened up the road again with the young lady. Her mother was around, the young lady that was in and out of hospital with asthma, and then she collapsed in tongue or by ACE. And nobody again looked in her bag for her pump. No, there is a situation that worries me every day, because I'm wondering if that can happen again. A child got knocked down on Morris Bishop Highway. No. Everybody just assumed that she is dead.
Yeah.
To the point where they took a sheet of plywood from one of the hardware stores nearby and put over the child because they said the sun too hot. The police were there, There was no effort to do CPR or anything. They just come to the conclusion that the child died. No. When they're calling for ambulance don't pick up dead people and whatnot, so they did not come too. So they put the child in the back of the police pickup as a dead body and they brought her to the hospital. That child survived about 2 days at the hospital. I'm saying, what the police never came to the public and gave an explanation. I'm saying, what was done then to analyze that situation, to make sure that something like that will never happen again. It should never happen again. Imagine that mother. Imagine. Yes? So I just want to hear Mr. McIntyre on that.
Yes.
Thank you very much, caller. All right.
DT, I am moved by this caller's comment, and I am sure you would agree with me that this is one of the reasons why we're having programs like this, because, ma'am, we do not want to see a repeat of this situation. This program will lead to less and less, and if not totally eliminate such a response and a reaction to members of our public. It leads and it speaks to and it identifies a number of weaknesses in the system. It speaks to the weaknesses and the lack of knowledge, ability, and confidence in members of our public to deal with emergencies. It also shows up an aspect of our law enforcement and otherwise as to how situation is handled as well by them, as to whether or not they should become more involved in the recovery process, or whether or not they should be more involved in the security and safety process. We would want to change that dimension. We would want to see our law enforcement apply the life-saving applications and technique first and foremost, because that's what fundamentally law enforcement people are trained to do. The effort in emergency definitely is life-saving above all else. For members of our public, life-saving is also what should I do as a life-saving method. And the application of a piece of plywood or anything else shows that, yes, there was some level of trying to assist, but the application would have been inappropriate. And that points out to a lack of knowledge and readiness by our wider society to deal with emergencies. We are hoping in the not too distant future that this will be a thing of the past, and this is the passion for which I am speaking and bringing this information to members of the public, so we can reverse this process and ensure that if somebody by some level of emergency collapses, meets in some level of accident, we would see a different approach, a different kind of response, where they would assess the person and, as you indicated, look for any medical alert, any information that would indicate that that person may have a particular medical condition and they're likely to be carrying some medical medication or medical equipment that can assist in their recovery. So I thank you for that call.
All right.
And I'm hoping that people who are listening would identify the weaknesses within our system and how we can improve. It is the responsibility of every citizen, I think, every family member, to ensure that somebody knows a level of first aid. If not general first aid, at least something in CPR and something about wounds and bleeding.
Sylvan, we do have another caller. Let's take this caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. JT, and good morning to Mr. McIntyre. Now,
Morning.
Mr. JT, in my training, you never pronounce somebody dead. The caller said the ambulance would not have taken a dead body when they called the ambulance, so they didn't come. So how did they know to tell the ambulance it's dead? You don't call the ambulance to say there is somebody dead here, because you're not a doctor. The only person can pronounce a death in my training, excepting things change. And I trained from Trillium. And I wondering how the ambulance didn't come and why. So the police cannot pronounce somebody dead, excepting there is changes, I don't know. So when there is an injury or accident, they must get to the doctor, they must get to the hospital or wherever to pronounce the person dead.
All right. Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution there. That's an interesting point.
Let me just clarify again that no one else is endowed with the authority to declare someone dead except the medical doctor. So not the police, not any one of us who are lay responders. We cannot declare anyone dead. Even if we may feel confidently that is the case, that is not our authority. So it has not changed. No one except a medical doctor, unseen or otherwise, can declare a body has been dead.
All right. We do have another caller. Let's take this caller. The calls are coming a bit fast this morning. Let's take another caller. Good morning to you, caller. Welcome.
Very good program, because I had 2 incidents on the Fort Judy. It was a Sunday and I went down there. I don't know for what reason, but I got there and a guy drank water, and it had over 100 people there. Even had a medical van there, and the van left. Then nobody knows what to do. I asked them to put a guy in the back of my truck, and I run. Nobody wanted to go with me. I put him in the back of the truck, and I took him to the hospital. I break traffic to get him there. And when I get there, the nurse, I asked her to let me know what's the position. She says she don't know how this guy survives, but he survives. So that's a very good program, and you all should continue.
All right. Thank you, caller.
Also, I had a case where some guys got in an accident. They waked me up in my bed because I live close to Fort Judy, and they said the guy dead. I went down there, and we put him in a bus, and he went to the hospital and he survived.
All right.
So nobody must pronounce somebody dead unless the doctor or nurse could say that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning. So when we due for a break, let's take it. We come back, we speak some more, and probably entertain some more callers. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point for today, Monday, here on K105 and GBN TV. We coming right back.
The National Insurance Scheme continues to make it easy to access our services using the MyNIS online platform. Now we're introducing a new feature that allows you to submit your benefit claims from the convenience of your smart devices. No paper, no hassle. All you have to do is log in to my.nisgrenada.org. Select claims, fill out the relevant information, and click submit. We'll take it from there. It's that simple and that easy. Submit a claim from the comfort of your home as you rest and recuperate. Enjoy the convenience of faster claim processing and monitor the status of your claim every step of the way. We are excited to introduce this new feature to better serve you. NIS is changing the game and the way you make your claim. Access anywhere and anytime with MyNIS Online.
Let's mingle and jingle.
You mean jingle and mingle, right?
Does it really matter? Mingle and Jingle, the mid-morning program that will drive the Christmas season. Weekdays from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Classic Radio, GBN Television, and all GBN social media platforms.
It's where the deals of the season are, where the Christmas music is played, holiday traditions are relived, and where all the fun is.
Mingle and Jingle.
Or Jingle and Mingle. Mid-mornings from November 14th to December 23rd only on the GBN network.
Made possible by West Hall Rums, Judy Free Caribbean Holdings, and Gittins Healthcare.
Looking for that injection of vibes and energy, of course? Well, I've got just that. Hi, my name is Gary Mr. Smooth, and I'm inviting you to join me on the Hot Morning Show on Hot 98.5, 98.7 FM. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 10 in the morning. I've got a healthy dose of your favorite and most infectious hits sampled with information, news, laughter, and all the other ingredients that go into making the hottest morning show on the radio. The Morning Heat. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit us up on WhatsApp, 435-7517. We've got topics, we've got discussions, calls, voice notes, and so much more. But I can't tell you everything. You gotta tune in. The Hot Morning Show on Hot FM 98.5, 98.7 with yours truly, Gary Mr. Smooth. Kaboom!
welcome back to our listeners and the viewers this morning. It's to the point for today, Monday, and Sylvan, time seems to be moving ahead of us this morning. Just around 10 minutes or so left on the show this morning, and we certainly will be entertaining some more calls during this segment. And during the break, the phones were certainly off the hook. So let's grab this caller. Certainly, I'm assuming they have a question or two that they would like to ask. Good morning to you, caller. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Telesford. I don't want to ask a question. I just want to make a recommendation. It is very, very good, a very good program. It is very essential. But what I want to add to that, when you meet an accident or you meet injuries or life-threatening situation, we don't know whether or not the person will die or live. So I'm suggesting that one of the first things we should do is to pray with that person and let that person receive Christ. So if they die, they are safe.
All right.
If they live, they are still safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller. 435-2041, 435-2041. And Sylvan, you know, our program this morning was to stress a lot in terms of CPR that will be done to a child or an infant. And we did talk about that to an extent this morning. And you did mention there's not much difference when it comes to a child, an infant, and an adult. But there are some things that you may have to do more or less when it comes to between a child and an infant. But we do have another caller. Let's entertain that caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, DT. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. McIntyre. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great, thanks.
DT, I don't have a question, but I was thinking about making a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
As Mr. McIntyre is so versed in this system, I was wondering if they can organize some programs for the village, like what they call community centers, so you can come in at even time, invite people to come and see what's happening. So you could know in the area, if things happen, that person could have some assistance.
Right.
Somebody in the village could assist somebody, you know?
All right.
That program would be nice. That would be nice. Because as for me, I was in the CPR system, but so long time I never did it.
All right.
So I need some refreshment.
Kind of lack practice.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. And that's an interesting contribution there. Certainly hope, Mr. McIntyre, you probably could look into that and see if that could be organized. You never know.
Yes, that is one of the medium-term goal, to be able to get to communities to render first aid, to help people do CPR. I think sooner rather than later, time permits, I think I will have some to be able to my vehicle has mannequins in it, so sooner rather than later you may just see me pull up in a village and say, people come out, learn some CPR. Or may have it in a more organized way, where I may have community mobilizers, community leaders, rallying people, mobilizing people to come out at a community session. Takes a couple minutes. Just show them if you need to do CPR, this is what you do. We probably want to do it at beaches, recreational areas. Just head out there. There might be people like lifeguards who are trained and may need to be refreshed. There might be just people hanging on a beach, maybe Batway, Grand Dance, some of the more popular beaches. And we could just stop by any time and just lend it to the people. I think Grenada would appreciate that.
So we do have another caller. Let's take this caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm JT, and to you, Mr.
McIntyre.
McIntyre.
Mm-hmm.
Very good program. I just wanted to piggyback on the last caller and to add to what Mr. McIntyre just said. I think it's important that on the community level, persons are trained efficiently, so that in the event something happens, whether it's in your home or in the community or wherever you may be, you'll be able to apply those techniques. But I just wanted to piggyback on the call, the third or fourth caller before, where she mentioned about the persons dying. I remember some time ago when the accident on Young Street took place. I think there was an individual who wanted to apply CPR, and when the police officer came, he said to them that they are not authorized to do so. So my question is, in terms of protocol and the time that is required between life and death, what do you apply first? Will you wait until the police officer comes? Or if you're in a position, and whether you're certified or not certified to apply CPR, once you know, you have an idea, would you be able to apply that knowledge that you have so that you can save that life? Because between the time the police or the emergency team arrives, that could be the end of the individual. So when do you apply? How would you be able to apply those protocols in the event, something like that happens and you are around and you really want to make some sort of assistance?
All right. Thank you, caller, for your contribution this morning. Yes.
Yeah. GT, you want me to respond to this now?
Go right ahead.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think this is the angle we are going. People would recognize or realize that they are now empowered, and you don't have to wait on a police officer if something happened in a community to respond to a situation. And this is why we have community emergency response teams and community emergency response training undertaken currently. I've been part of that so that we can empower communities to do that. The second aspect of it is that police officers will also understand a bit more the role of communities, the role of people, and their own role. We have to respect law enforcement. If there is any emergency law enforcement, obviously they are in charge and we must respect that. But where we are trying to move to is that law enforcement would understand too that they can't do it all themselves, and so they should incorporate and encourage communities to respond. But responding has a way to do it. There is a protocol, and yes, ma'am, you do not have to wait for the police, but if the police are there, you obviously need to listen to the police instruction and be guided by it. The police are human, and they may be subject to mistakes, or they may not follow protocol as well. And for this, unfortunately, if it happened, you will have to forgive them and hope that they are retrained and they are trained to the point where they can react and respond appropriately. But there has to be a community and a law enforcement buy-in. When an emergency occurs, once you understand what you need to do, it's a life and death situation, and so members of the public are expected. The last thing I want to see on that is that everything that appears to be an emergency may not necessarily be an accident. It may also be a crime scene, so that people who are intending to assist must be mindful of what they do, what you touch, where you move, etc. You must take notice of that, maybe take pictures or other things, and ensure that you do not contaminate or get all over that you would impede or retard the process of an investigation. So you have to be mindful that every person lying in a pool of blood, trapped in a vehicle, underwater somewhere, may not be an emergency or an accident, may just be a willful act by somebody who needs to be brought to justice.
All right. We do have another caller, Sylvan. Let's take this caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Yes, good morning, DC. Good morning, Brother McIntyre. Let me ask you, please. Long ago, he used to have Red Cross. You almost bring in some of those Red Cross. As you're watching me, I am a full Red Cross member. I know every living thing to do. And Red Cross now is not as Red Cross before. Now I have 75 years. I could do everything for as what was Red. I could tell you must bring in some people from the Red Cross member, Brother McIntyre.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bring in the Red Cross coming in the group.
All right.
Okay, my dear Laden.
Thank you.
Have a blessed and a wonderful day. God bless you. I love you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. All right.
Thank you very much, Jacob.
All right. 435-2041. Sylvan, we have basically just around 3 minutes or so left on the show this morning.
On the program, yeah.
Yeah, let's try one more caller, and then we come to a way that we just summarize what we spoke about this morning. Good morning, caller. Welcome.
Yes, morning.
Good morning.
School should have children learning to do Red Cross. Because in my time, we used to have Red Cross children and teachers to do those things for them. Even in the other thing. Red Cross is very good for children to learn in school. Teachers are supposed to teach them. So when things, because you don't have Red Cross around the schools, around the country, I don't know.
All right. Thank you so much, caller. All right. Sylvan, I guess we're coming to that wrapping up stage this morning. I guess I'll let you give a summary of what we spoke about this morning in reference to, CPR when it's been performed, especially on a child, on an infant, the difference between that and an adult, before we take a wrap. Because this is like the second show we're doing on CPR this morning. We just had to do an extended version. And we can't exhaust it that much. You never know. We may have to do another one of these mornings once again. I'll give you the opportunity there to make a summary of what we spoke about this morning, and we take a wrap.
So once again, thank you for hosting this program. People, we would just like to let you know that there are 3 levels of persons that can be involved in an emergency. An infant, a person of 0 to 1 year, a child, a person of 1 to 8 or 1 to 12 years, and an adult for emergency purposes only 8 years and above. The application of CPR is 30 breaths across the board for an infant, a child, and an adult. 2 breaths and 30 compression. In the absence, you don't need to necessarily do breath, but compression could just substitute for both. So it's 30 compression and 2 breaths across the board. You're trying to compress the adult chest 1.5 to 2 inches down with 2 hands. You're going to compress the child's chest 1 to 1.5 inches with 1 hand. And for the infant, 0.5 to 1 inch with 2 fingers. If you do this, if you apply the process of CPR for an infant, a child, and an adult, with the stipulation that I have given, we can guarantee that there will be less loss of life and less exacerbation of emergency. It has been my pleasure. Thank you all very much.
Sylvan, it's always a pleasure also, of course, hosting the show together with you, and certainly hope we can do this again next week. Probably we'll have another topic next week that will bring loads of interest to our viewing and listening audience. Until we do this again, Sylvan, have yourself a great day.
Thank you very much.
And this way also where I say goodbye to our viewing and listening audience this morning. Those of you who participated, whether it's via that phone call or you viewed and just sent it. I'm seeing loads of you have sent your comments via the Facebook page. Thank you so much. Those who, of course, also sent comments via the WhatsApp. Thank you so much also. Until we have another edition of To The Point once again, have yourself a great day. This way I say goodbye for this for today's program here on the K105 and GBN TV. Goodbye for today.